Welcome to the Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. My name is Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and leader in the field of mental health, energy psychology, addiction, trauma, and empowerment. In this podcast, we will be exploring mental health from a variety of perspectives, from the spiritual to the shamanic and beyond. What if mental illness isn't everything we think it is? What if everything we see as a pathology is actually a possibility? What else is possible with mental health? Hi, everyone. Dr. Adriana Popescu here with you again with another episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. I'm very excited to have with me as my guest today, Erica Spiegelman. She is an author, addiction and wellness specialist, educator, and motivational speaker. She is the co-founder of New Spirit Recovery. And Erica provides a holistic approach to helping people overcome their struggles with addiction and dependency and gives them the tools they need to create healthy lives for themselves. She is the author of the bestseller Rewired, a bold new approach to addiction and recovery, the Rewired workbook, and the Rewired coloring book, Rewired Life and Workbook. 101 affirmations for addiction and recovery. Wow, you are so prolific. She is a regular contributor to online health outlets, TV news shows, and is a guest contributor to the online wellness community Poosh. She holds a bachelor's degree in literature from the University of Arizona and is a California State certified drug and alcohol counselor from UCLA. Through her work, writing, and media appearances, Erica is dedicated to touching and changing as many lives as possible. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you for that introduction. It's funny when you hear everything in
Yes.
one space and time. Thank you for having me on. I'm really happy to be here with you. And I feel like it's very serendipitous since I had just sent someone to you and your facility, which was, I when I heard about this facility up north, I was like, this is very cool. Thank God there's something like this. And it turned out to be you
Yes.
behind it. So
Yes.
I always love that. It's very special. Yeah.
Yes, and we were introduced actually through a mutual friend, Mr. TJ Woodward, who has been a guest. He was just actually on our show on the 100th episode. We did a little celebratory 100th episode podcast, and I love TJ because, like, you also said he's super inspirational. He's so positive, and I think the way that he's looking at addiction and recovery is through such a different lens than what we kind of traditionally have experienced and been taught. So I can't wait to get more into that. But first, I always like to start by asking all of our guests to tell us a little bit more about your story. How did you come to be doing this work? What led you here to this moment?
So I changed my own life at 28 years old. So I got sober myself and I went to treatment and went to an outpatient after that for 30 days and did a sober living for 30 days. I just like to be specific because, there are a lot of people out there that wonder if that's a good option, which I think the longer time we give ourselves for our brains to adjust and pathways to be created, the better. And then after that, I really felt compelled, pulled, called to do this work as a counselor. So I went back to school at UCLA and got certified and then started working in treatment immediately as a clinician and counselor, doing one-on-one sessions and family sessions at Passages. I was at Beat Teshuva. I was a bunch of places in LA, and then I started doing groups, a lot of groups, which I found I really liked. And I was a writer, my whole life since I was a little girl, and I studied that for my undergraduate. And so I was writing different groups and creating pamphlets for them, all the clients. And like after a couple of years, I had created 75 groups, and I was reading tons of books, and I didn't find anything that really talked about the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self-care foundational tools that I used to get sober, and a lot of the things at that point I was doing with my clients. And So I created the book Rewired. I started writing it kind of based on all the groups I had done, and the feedback I got professionally of this was helpful. This was, I need more information on this. And that's kind of how the book started. And I wrote Rewired in 2015, and it did very well, and it still does well. And then from there came the five other books. um, but through and through, I kept continuing to do the one-on-one counseling. And after Rewired came out, I started a private practice because people would find me through the book and asking me for sessions. And so I've been doing that pretty much exclusively for the last decade plus.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're yeah, and you're also involved though with aren't you also the co-founder or you started a treatment program down south there? Yeah, tell us
Yeah,
about that.
so yeah, November of last year, we opened up New Spirit Recovery. We're an inpatient and detox treatment center in Los Angeles. We have two houses, so we have now 12 beds, and the Rewired program is kind of at the core of the program, and we also have a lot of holistic um, groups and amazing clinicians and treatment professionals that are coming in. We do music therapy, art therapy, obviously the CBD. I mean, the CBT, not CBD, the CBT groups. We do all the traditional ones, but we really like pride ourselves in giving them like actual tools they could use in the moment, life skills, cooking classes, a lot of movement. We have yoga at the house, we have Reiki, we have sound baths, we have meditation teachers, everything. Just, for me, I really, I got into, I wanted to do this on the business side with New Spirit Recovery to give people the chance to try everything on and see what they like and see what they don't like. And there's not one path forward in recovery for anybody. Every individual is different. So I was excited to get involved in kind of starting a new treatment center and having that opportunity, because I'd always wanted to give people a chance to experience other ways of healing.
Yeah. I think that's so important what you said there about everybody's path is different. I think there's a misperception out sort of in the lay community that there's one way to do it and it's you go to rehab for 30 days and then now you're going to be magically cured, which in and of itself is way off. But a lot of people think it's just 12 step, that's what you do. And if you go to those meetings and you don't resonate or they don't speak to you, there are people that are turned off by those meetings and then they kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and figure, okay, well, there's no other way for me to get sober. And that's so not true.
Exactly. No, exactly. And that's why, we do take people to AA meetings so they could try it at night. And we do Dharma meetings, and we do smart recovery meetings. There's also Rewired meetings online that people have started. We want everybody to be encouraged to find their own path, and that, and I try to help personally when I'm there once a week, and I teach a group on Thursdays. And I'll make sure to sit with everybody and say like, hey, what's working for you? What do you like? What's resonating? What's intuitively speaking to you? And which area do you want to work on? And so I think just normalizing, lifting the stigma of like like addiction treatment used to be, and how community is found, is changing too, because there's more than one way to find a community that is on the same path, and I've been personally shamed for not going down a certain path myself. And I always felt very strong in my own sobriety, safe within myself. I really felt like I found freedom in the path I chose and laid out for myself. So I know that other people had experienced that. So again, just normalizing that for our clients is important.
Yeah. So before I get more into Rewired and how that might be different, you did mention community, and I want to hear a little bit more about why is community so important? Because I don't think people, if you're recovering, let's say from, I don't know, diabetes or something, yeah, they may have diabetes support groups, but most people don't think of that as sort of like the standard practice if you just have to change your diet and exercise and maybe take some pills. And I think there might be, again, some misperceptions about that as well in the addiction field. Why is community and finding your community so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's really important because there's a sense of, well, accountability, number one. I think just off the bat, it would be great for diabetics to have accountability as well and have each other. I think everybody that's going through anything to do with their health, there is a benefit from having other people that you can relate to, that can relate to each other. And if needed, having that accountability is built in a sense. So I think that's number one, the internal and external accountability it gives you. But number two, I think, like, honestly, at the core of what addiction is about is a lack of love in some way, whether it's a lack of love that you've missed out on as a child in some way because of a circumstance, or the lack of self-love because of the self-betrayal that goes on in addiction. And so we need others. We need to connect with others. We're us as human beings are meant to be in tribes. We're meant to be having relationships with other people. And I think the world we live in now, we are very isolated, and there's a lot of, I think psychologically, a lot of people that are like, I can do this on my own. I've been on my own. And they rationalize these, like, old narratives or false core beliefs. But again, I think when anybody puts themselves out there and tries to really be part of a community, they will feel that love, the presence, the understanding, the acceptance that we don't get when we're alone. So acceptance too is a huge part of it.
Agreed. And so much magic, as a group facilitator myself for so many years, there really is a magic that happens in that group setting when people finally, start to see that, hey, I'm not alone in this. I mean, so often I hear, I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the only one who felt this way. And
Of course.
right, to get validated and to have that normalized. And I think with trauma in particular, because so many of, I mean, uh, 80 to 90% of the people I see in coming for treatment have had trauma in addition to their addiction issue. Well, the thing with trauma is you tend to isolate even more because you don't feel safe and you don't trust people. So, like, first and foremost, how important it is to create safe spaces where you can feel vulnerable, where you can open up, where you can talk about these things that have been maybe you've never told anybody about, but that have been driving this isolation and driving this addictive behavior for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. The having a lack, I think too, we, like, people that come in, feel very judged. They judge themselves, and to have a community where there's no judgment, or, people have done similar things, normalizes it a bit, and that does really help. I mean, I thought I was alone, completely alone. I thought, the nobody is as bad as me. This is what I thought at the time. No one is doing the things I'm doing. Little did I know millions of people were, but, but yeah, you do see this glimmer of hope that just comes across people's faces when they're sitting in these groups, and, like, and those relationships that are formed in treatment too are very special. And, so anyway, I think, but this is a really great time in the history of our world where we do, the good, the bad, the ugly of technology, but we really do have a lot of opportunities to connect with others in different ways now, especially on Zoom meetings. And I know personally people in my own life, my best friends, people that have changed their lives utilizing these communities and having support. So yeah, it's very important.
Where do you think our current treatment paradigm, for addiction treatment, trauma treatment, mental health treatment, whatever, all of it, so is so in intertwined.
Yeah.
Where do you think we have fallen short? And I'm wondering, this is sort of a segue toward Rewired, like maybe that what are you bringing into the picture that you have felt is missing?
Hmm. Well, I could say what I felt is missing, and I do think it's really, a lack of education on self-care tools. And I mean self-care in a very broad sense. I don't mean like taking a bath or taking, a walk, although those things are very important and great tools, but it's really the emotional self-care, the mental self-care, the spiritual self-care, um, that I teach people, and that it's part of my Rewired method. I do workshops on this for corporate companies. I do it also for treatment centers and their staff. There's people that, well, we could talk about people working in this industry, but also, there's people in middle America. We're in California, which is, we have a really strong community here in wonderful, I think, treatment centers. But there are clients we get from the middle Tennessee, Arkansas, that, I mean, have literally no access to treatment. I mean, zero. And I know there's some centers there, but really it's hard for them, for their insurance to be covered. There's a lot of remote people actually living in remote places that aren't near cities where there's zero, so I think in general, I think that there's just and what they do find, let me just say also, what they do find is just typical AA, and that's it pretty much, if they could find a meeting. So I think bringing the conversation, bringing self-care to the conversation, and providing, at least for me, books, podcasts, tools, online programs, whatever I can do to help educate people on how do I change my mental health? How do I change my emotional health? How do I begin to change my thought habits? Because our thoughts, dictate how we feel, our mood, the way we show up in the world, our confidence. And so I, pride myself, I hope, on giving people tools on how to do that, like teaching them cognitive distortions, how to be aware of them, how to change them, and for me, it's always like how to. I don't want to just say do this and not show them how to do this, even as a boundary, right? Talking about a boundary. So many people say, well, how do I start to set a boundary? So I literally have a program where I write it, they could write it out. I say what to say. So I just think, just again, it does, when I say it's a different approach, I think it's different from what I've seen, and I've traveled the country too. And, allowing people to understand that, we do need to learn how to have a foundation of self-love, you know, like you said, because of people that have endured such trauma, and such trauma that has been caused by their dependency or addiction, um, that we need to heal with as much love and as much self-care tools as possible. Yeah.
Agreed. And, it's interesting. Just the other day, because, I'm also the clinical director at a women's dual diagnosis program up here where we specialize in trauma. And just the other day, the ladies were like, yeah, I need to learn how to love myself more. I need to have more compassion for myself. But then when you ask them, like, okay, so how are you going to do that? It's like they draw a complete blank. They have, they know intellectually this is something they're supposed to be doing, but they have zero idea about like how to even begin to implement that. So what I'm liking about what you're saying is it sounds very pragmatic. The Rewired program sounds like it's really tangible and not just sort of speaking in the abstract, which I think also can happen with spirituality, right? Sometimes it feels like we're having these abstract kinds of conversations and people really need something tangible to
Yes. Yes.
sink into.
Absolutely, yes. And like with spirituality, like I just did a group the other day, she goes, "Well, I'm religious, but what, now I've been gone from my religion for so long." I'm like, "Okay, let's forget that. Like if you want to go back to religion, fantastic. If prayer is good for you and your religion, that's great." And we can start a practice of spiritual self-care and connecting with the spirit, which is you, right? And something maybe energetic around us, if you want to, whatever it is that your belief is, great. But we start this with a gratitude practice, and we do this every morning. And I have our clients get up in the morning and they go outside and they, by themselves, and they take 5 minutes with their coffee. It's mandatory. And they reflect on what they're grateful for, whether they want to write it or not, dropping really in. It's not just I'm grateful for this. It's deep, deep, deep within yourself, and recognizing the blessings that you have. You made it. You've had the courage to get to this point, to even do a gratitude practice, and just also educating people on how to change those pathways. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've done a lot of research and reading on the fact that, the good news is we could change our brain with new habits and new routines. We also change our brain with bad habits and bad routines. And it's, with repetition, 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 repetition. I mean, that's where, I want to set people up for success with these pragmatic tools, these real-time tools with, here's your routine day to day, and how important routine is. And it's just, And it's important for everybody, no matter where you're at on your path. You don't have to be, you don't have to be so rigid as time goes, but when you're really trying to change your life, your lifestyle, your identity, we have to start taking action and doing things like, if you run every day, you're a runner. If you smoke every day, you're a smoker. So like, let's get into routines that serve us. Let's get up early. Let's go outside and have this moment for gratitude. Let's just move our bodies. I do a self-care workshop, and, I never call it exercise. It's movement, and I don't call it nutrition. I call it nourishment. Like, we need to start nourishing ourselves and taking care of ourselves on every level. Yeah. So
So the thing I think of, when you talk about all that is, and yes, like how starving so many of our clients are for that. And yet there's this, oftentimes, this really deep shame, right? TJ calls it toxic shame, that really like disconnects us, and really, it's like this black cloud of doom sometimes, is how I picture it, that doesn't even allow someone sometimes to take that step toward, saying something kind about themselves, or receiving a compliment. How difficult it is for some of our clients to even receive a compliment. Oh, they're just being nice, they don't really mean it, right? How do you work with that when someone has such deep levels of shame? Because I think it can be so embedded in addiction.
I I I encourage them to start looking at their actions when I'm working with them. Like, I really do like for them, to have that accountability and follow up with me. Like, did you get up? Did you make your bed? Did you move today? What did you do to help yourself feel better today? Whatever it was. And again, like, highlight for them that is self-love now, right? Like, like, you're starting, right? You may have never done it before, but you getting up, taking a shower, washing your face, making your bed, even if you just did that, that's all acts of self-love. Let's acknowledge that, right? And give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself a hug. I'm serious. Like, I like, it sounds silly, you guys, but we need to start talking to ourselves with such self-compassion. And I'm like, what do you want to call yourself today? Sweetie, babe. I don't care. We're gonna give ourselves a name, like a loving name. Good job. You're strong. Good job. You did this. At the end, when at the end of the day, head hits the pillow. I want also too. I try to encourage, like, good job. You were so great today. You did this. Good, good. And start changing that internal self talk, because we're with ourselves all day long. Like, that's all that's going on is internal chatter, right? Nobody knows what's going on. So we have to begin to be our own best friends, our own champions. And how do we do that when we're coming from such a place of deep shame and self-betrayal and shame and all of these things, which is, we will make peace with all that. We can get through that, but let's focus on today and let's focus on building right now, building from somewhere, right? And so again, there is proof in, like, okay, I did do something that bettered my life today, right? I did my laundry, I did cook a meal, I did whatever it is. That's enough. Like, that's a great step forward. I mean, just, that is amazing, and I really applaud them for those baby steps that someone would look at as baby steps, but they're not.
No, they're huge for someone who, let's say, has been, hasn't left their bedroom and with the curtains pulled and drinking around the clock and, all the things, like just getting out of bed and taking a shower is an enormous, accomplishment. I love what you're saying here, because I think the tendency, we have something like what, 80,000 thoughts a day. Most of them tend to be toward the negative. We're biased towards the negative thinking, and people get so fixated on the past. That's what I see a lot for our clients, right? They're so fixated on the past and like all the terrible things that either happened to them or terrible things they did. And so they're living again in this toxic shame. And they're, that they're dwelling on the past and often depressed about the past. They're worried about the future and anxious, like they'll never get this, they'll never be able to stay sober or what that might be like, and then they're missing the gift that is the present.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that present time consciousness, we do, I don't know how you do in your program, but we do a lot of meditation, we do a lot of mindfulness, because people are so scattered everywhere, and like the way people are like glued to their devices now, and just being present with yourself. And yes, those small acknowledgments, like right now I could be dwelling on all the horrible things I'm done, or I could look outside and be like, wow, that's a really beautiful tree and the sun is shining, and in this moment actually things are okay.
Right. Exactly, exactly. But it's retraining your brain, I mean, it's retraining your thoughts. And that's something too I've always spoken about and rewired this latest book I've written, the 101 affirmations for addiction and recovery. It's more than just there are affirmations on every page, but it's more the in the beginning I wrote and wanted to, relay the importance of our thought habits and how I don't think it's addressed as much, of like, we need to start with that somewhere in the beginning, not, because I've worked in treatment where that really wasn't addressed at certain places that I had been working at, and then when the beginning of my career until about time they were about to leave, and then we started to address self-talk and that kind of thing. And it's like this needs to kind of start in the beginning so we could create an awareness. um, And I think we have changed. I mean, in terms of a whole industry, I think it has become, and I was telling TJ this at the conference on the panel, um, I think we really have embraced this idea of holistic treatment in a way, and I think that there are more centers and more, um, facilities and outpatients and, sober livings and, eh, the gamut of, but I think everybody is kind of, accepting the fact that we need more than just meetings. We need more than just a therapy session and then a meeting. I mean, there has to be more,
Or
the
medication, right? I
or
mean,
medication, right.
right,
Where
like
the
that's
where are the life skills, you know? Yeah.
That's the thing. I think it's become, that's one of my complaints with the current state of affairs, or the traditional state of affairs. It's that it's so prescriptive. Like do this, and then you'll get sober. And then people don't understand, well, I did all that and I'm either not able to stay sober, or I'm barely sober and but still miserable. Right? Like the sort of the white knuckling concept. So I love that, even though you're giving a lot of specific examples of self-care across these different, aspects of our lives, it also sounds like there's a lot of room in there for individualization, right? For people to try different things and find out what works best for them, because just because it works for you or me doesn't mean it's going to work for someone else, and then they're going to be like, again, thinking they're wrong. They're like, something's wrong with me that it doesn't work for me.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, that's that conversation I have with them right away is that we're all different and we're all gonna have a different path, and that's okay. Um, and try it on like you try on a shirt and be like, "This fits, this doesn't fit," and again, like, you know, allowing, I know it's hard to trust ourselves in the beginning of sobriety, but I do also bring up intuition and authenticity right away of like, we're taking off the mask, and who emerges, right, is acceptable no matter who that is. Like, we need to begin to accept who we are and the beauty of who each one of us individually is, and that those things we've dimmed down or those things that we've hid and the things that, again, like you said, in community, it's easy to finally take off the mask a little bit. And yeah.
You just reminded me of something, that people don't, Carl Jung's work, right? He talks about shadow work and how important it is in healing and in therapy and stuff, to really look at the parts of ourselves we haven't wanted to like fully acknowledge. Um, and that could be the pain, the suffering, the trauma, the whatever. But there's also the golden shadow. I don't know if you ever heard of that term, but it's like all the positive things about yourself that you also hide away and you don't
Yeah,
acknowledge.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and you may see it in other people. You may see like how brilliant they are, right? But you don't see where you have those same qualities yourself. And so I feel like that's such an important piece of the work that we do as well, is to help people find that light within. Like it may seem like it's gone out for some, but it's always there. We just have gotten disconnected from it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the past 2 years, I have a Rewired online program that is modules, videos, and I hadn't really put it to the forefront. It's been there in the background and people want to use it, but and it will be. But I gave it to a company called Adovo, and they are an educational platform. They have tablets in 500 prisons, jails, and juvenile detention centers across the U.S. And I wanted. And they have a substance abuse section on their tablets. They also have like vocational skills, reading, writing, comprehension, different things these incarcerated learners can take like courses. And so there's a substance abuse course and Rewired's under there. So I just got the results back that, now it's in 303 of the prisons and or jails, and 20,000 incarcerated learners have opened it and tried it, and 7,000 have completed it, which is really cool to have happen. And why I'm bringing this up too is not only is that an important population for me to start working with, and I want to continue to grow that, but um, talk about shame, and talk about not seeing the light and not, and I mean, you're like literally locked, and I went to a juvenile detention center recently in Los Angeles, and those young men have dreams, and they know that they're going to be getting out at some point, but there's been things that have gone on in the past that they're not proud of, obviously. And just to see their light and to see that, the fact that they're healing and forgiving and moving forward, was really wonderful. And but there again, there's not enough tools for them. Like, there was a couple that were hopeful, but there was many that weren't, and so, and I think with substance use disorder for people that are incarcerated, and, it's not addressed at all. Of like, that's the reason maybe that they keep returning, whether it's, you know, one thing or the other. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I feel like when you said that, yeah, it's definitely another population that we can help in
It's
terms of.
so wonderful. I'd forgotten about we had talked about that before. Yeah, I'd wanted that to come up. I'm glad you brought it up. Because yeah, I mean, our prison system is greatly moved away from rehabilitation, which was the original intention, right? And it's much more about punishment and just all the horrific conditions people are living in and experiencing. And, traumatized people even more isn't going to help them learn how to stay out of those places or be able to function in this world. So I mean, I think that's amazing that your program made it in there. What a gift. Think of the implications if we had stuff like that in school. I always joke around about how much useless information did I learn in school that has no bearing on my life, when really I should have been learning like the basics, like how do you deal with your emotions? Like what do you do when people are unkind? I mean, practical life skills. That's the kind of stuff we've moved so far away from. So I'm loving that you're really speaking to that with your work. And not making people wrong, because I think sometimes people, are ashamed. Like we've had clients come before who don't know how to do their laundry, don't know how to cook a meal, like have not, for whatever reason, we don't need to speculate on how they got there, but they really do lack some of the most basic things that some of us maybe take for granted.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, that's why we have a chef at New Spirit, and we're like, can you do cooking lessons? Because people don't know how to. How can I say to somebody, these are the foods that'll be the most nourishing, but you don't know how to make eggs or scramble them, or how to, really seriously, what fruit is, you know, what is, so again, it's really like taking it down to the real basics and starting with that, um, yeah, it's for sure life skills are needed, and the emotional life skills I think are really important, because most of us that have fallen into some kind of addictive behavior have suppressed some kind of emotion at some point or another. And so again, it's just normalizing emotion, teaching us how to get through emotion. I have a 5 and a 6 year old, and my son will be like, I'm so angry, and I'll say to him, that's okay, like you're allowed to feel your feelings. You could be angry, and I wish I had heard that too when I was younger, but again, it's not our first reaction is to normalize pain for people. We want to fix it so fast.
So
Yeah.
is there anything else you would like the audience to know about Rewired, the books, the programs? I mean, there's so many different, you're delivering it across all these different kind of platforms in treatment programs. Like what else would people want to know about it?
Yeah. So I was telling you before, I'm going to be launching a Rewired recovery coaching program. And people will be certified Rewired coaches if they complete the program. And it's kind of Rewired 2.0. It's the 8 R's of recovery, and we start with, you know, just kind of helping clients rebuild their lives in a way. And I'm really excited. I'm excited. There's been a lot of counselors, coaches, peer coaches, therapists that have reached out asking for more training around the rewired stuff. So I'm excited to launch that. And there'll be more material for and tools for people to learn, the actual professionals and for their clients. I'm going to be giving a brand new workbook that is exclusive to this program. And then, I've just wanted people to know that the workshops that are available are really comprehensive about tools that their community can get that day. So I'm actually doing a workshop tomorrow for a company that is like in retail, like it has nothing to do with recovery, but they want a self-care workshop for their employees. So I'm doing for all their executives. I'm going to do the self-care workshop. I did that with Salesforce, which is another tech company, and I've also done it with Cliffside Malibu and other centers as well. So across the board, I love doing the workshops because I get to work with actual people and connect. So I'm always available for your community, no matter what it is. Um, for your staff or for both. And yeah, I just want people to know that, that we can all rewire, we can all change. There's not one of us out there that is incapable of this. And so, I'm just trying to do what I can do with the time and the energy I have in my life. But on my website, also, there's a free manual that people can download, and it comes with 15 weeks of material for you to start your own rewired community wherever that is. So you can do it online, you could do it in your work, you could do it, with friends, wherever you want it. So it's a community manual to kind of give people another option for community.
Fantastic. I'm going to be signing up for that right after our call. I think
Print
we
it out.
I
Yeah,
think that's amazing. Yes, we always are looking for great new content at the rehab where I work. And
yeah.
so Erica, where is your website for people who are
It's
looking?
ericaspiegelman.com, just ERICASPIEGELMAN.com. I'm on Instagram under Erica Spiegelman. I try to post some things, or, helpful things for people there. And yeah, I think my website is pretty much the best place to get all the information for individual sessions, workshops, the programs, anything. Yeah. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
This has been so much fun chatting with you. I often like to, yeah, I often like to end the show kind of with a question about the future, as we are continuing to evolve ourselves, those of us working on ourselves, and seeing the challenges that have been particularly difficult these last few years, especially in terms of like isolation and all that. Where would you like to see the future of addiction treatment, mental health treatment? What is your vision in that for that, and what role do you play in bringing that to fruition?
What a good question. Oh, well, I would really like the government to step up, to be honest, and provide more resources for people. So I'm hoping to be part of that. My putting it out there as something to manifest, but I would love to be able to have like a contract with the government to use my Rewired program for incarcerated learners, for people in hard to reach places that need treatment, or need a program of some kind. But I think the state governments, the local governments, communities on a local level, we have to start there because we have people in our communities that just cannot find help, or don't have access to tools. So that's what I would like to see. Um, obviously in terms of just treatment centers and mental health facilities and all of that, obviously just to keep growing in the direction of holistic tools. But really, I think we have a major issue, obviously, with this epidemic right now, and a real lack of resources, which is very very angering to me, because I really want that to change. I think I would love for anybody that needs help to get help, period. And it's just, I've heard so many stories about just people not being able to get it, and then somehow they make it, and I get to hear the story. But again, years of struggling, so trying to prevent that.
Yeah, 100% there with you. Yes. Thank you so much, Erica, for your time, for your gifts, for your contribution. So excited that you're out there doing this work, trying to get these tools out there in the hands of people. I'm with you. Practical tools is what's needed. We got to start building a new foundation from the ground up, because the one that was there before ain't working so well. So I love the work that you're doing. Thank you for everything. And we'll put all the links in the show notes for those who are interested. And thank you all, audience, listeners, viewers who have stuck it out here till the end. If you have liked this podcast, please do review it, rate it, subscribe to it, share it with people, whatever we need to do to get the algorithms moving in our direction so more people can get this information, because lots of people are seeking right now. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much.
See you next time. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. This has been Dr. Adriana Popescu. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share with others. To find out more about me, my guests, and more, please visit my website at adrianapopescu.org. See you next time.